All 3 character kits are out. I'm not making 3 videos of yap, so let's cover the basics about all the characters here. Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be talking about all 3 of the freshly leaked characters, as they are all somewhat complicated and I want to break them down. And I want Clorinde to break my back. Like 2 days ago now, I released a video on Clorinde based on early leaks, and 90% of what I said was true. What I got wrong was that apparently her dashing doesn't give her an attack, or at least we are not sure if she can use a dash to proc her skill, or we just have to press her skill again. Well anyways, in this video I'll be going over all the kits of the characters and doing a surface level analysis into their meta applications, as we'll need their gameplay to make more conclusive judgments. But before we do that, as always, if at any point during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. And with that, let's begin. Now, to give a basic explanation of all the characters, Clorinde is a 5-star Electro Sword DPS that will use constant normal attacks and skills, as well as the Bond of Life mechanic to boost her output. Sigewinne is a 5-star Hydro Bow user who really likes balls. Her skill shoots out a ball or hold it for a big ball that heals the team and herself. During her burst, she will shoot out a ton of small balls. She generates Source Ward droplets, which are balls, and she uses Ball, or the full name Bond of Life, to increase her healing. And lastly, there's Sethos, who I do admit I cooked because he was trying to steal Fischl's whole flow, being an Electro 4-star with a bow. But actually, he's going to be an on-field DPS who looks like he wants to be played in aggravate teams alongside Fischl, instead of trying to compete with her. So hell, if it's helping to push the Fischl scriptures, I have nothing but respect for him. That's it for the basic overview. Let's yap about the characters more individually, starting with my gun wife, Clorinde. Her elemental skill will give you an Electro infusion and change her to the night patrol state, and all her normal attacks from here will be gunshots, which guess who got that right? And when you cast her elemental skill again in this state, she will do a stab attack. Some additional things to be noted is that yes, she has a Bond of Life, and her normal attacks will regenerate 35% of her Bond of Life for every normal attack done under 100% of her current Bond of Life. And the normal attacks done under 100% will also deal more damage. So with this Bond of Life, what the fuck will you do with it? Well, as I said, you have your skill attacks, and when you recast your skill above 100% Bond of Life, she will do a very powerful piercing attack with a big AoE that will restore HP as well. So the way you want to rotate with Clorinde is to do 3 normals to get above 100% and then clear it with your skill that gets boosted after hitting 100% bond. And as standard, when you are in this state, you cannot be healed with anything other than Clorinde's skill. But this is a lot better than in Arlecchino's case, as you'll be able to be healed outside of this state, and you're going to be spamming her over 100% Bond of Life skills, which heals you for 20% or more. Also not ruining Clorinde's Fiorina synergy and making healerless teams a lot more probable. For her burst, it's just Electro Wanderer, so we're almost about to round out the Wanderer burst reskins, first with Riosli, for Cryo Wanderer, and now Gunmother gives us Electro Wanderer. She does also give herself a 120% bond with this, so there should be some way to incorporate this into her gameplay loop. And lastly, both of her Ascension talents are pretty fucking good. The first one gives you 17% of her attack as flat damage for her normals and burst for each different Electro reaction triggered by a teammate or Clorinde herself, which stacks up to 3 times for a total of 51% of her attack as a flat increase. Also, her skill attack when she stands changes is counted as normal attack damage, so it will be buffed by this as well. And this is amazing because it means all the teams I talked about in my video a few days ago are going to be pretty solid. And from the wording, it doesn't specify that you need to have 3 different reactions on the team, just that you need to trigger a reaction 3 different times. So this means if you're on a Chevreuse Overload team and you just trigger Overload 3 times, this should give you the full buff. Unless they just decide to cuck us, and it works exactly as how Nouvelette does. Her second passive will give her 20% crit rate when your Bond of Life value above 100% changes. A lot of people were sad that the Hunter set isn't her best in slot set, as she's like a descendant of the Marechaussee Hunters. Though if you think about it, she technically has a built-in Hunter set. She gives herself 17.4% crit by ascending and 20% from this. So just for the flex, she gives herself 1 extra point of crit than just using the Hunter set. And because of her constant self-healing, you can use her with the Hunter set regardless, though I wouldn't recommend it over the Bond of Life set. And you'll also be extremely prone to overcapping crit rate. So yeah, depending on how fast Clorinde's normal attacks are, she's looking to be a very solid DPS. And this is in her first beta cycle, meaning she most likely will get better from here. Oh yeah, also any healing Clorinde does receive will go to increasing her Bond of Life, so you can heal back even more HP. But this isn't going to really change her combos at all, as it'd be too hard to accommodate for this, so just see this as extra healing when you do your skill. As I just finished recording this, her animations came out and I can confirm she attacks very fucking fast. So I'm extremely confident in the fact that she'll be in the upper tiers of a DPS unit, but I'll do some numbers after this to confirm. But enough of Clorinde, let's talk about Sigewinne. The more and more Genshin designs come out, the more I realize that I might just hate children. I'm sorry, I don't find her cute at all. Nouvelle, stop crying. As I said, Sigewinne is all about balls, and her elemental skill will shoot out a ball that deals damage to enemies based on her HP. Every time it hits an enemy, she will heal the entire team except herself, and after her ball bounces 5 times, she will then heal herself. If you hold down her skill, she will create bigger balls that heal more, and the only notable thing about this is that you can immobilize enemies with your massive balls, kind of like Hydro Abyss mages. Though if this takes a lot of time to do, then I can see this being a waste and you just tap the skill all the time. Speaking of which, here are some calcs of how good her healing is, and honestly, I think it's pretty good considering it's team-wide. Even on the Favonius bow, you're getting basically 20k total healing if you play her in double Hydro or with Furina. And 4k a tick should be enough healing to sustain you over 18 seconds, which is her skill cooldown. She does heal more with the higher bubble levels, but I just don't see anyone doing it in practice, so I don't think it's worth calculating, at least in this video. She does also create 2 source water droplets with her skill, which is the same thing Nouvelle creates, so yes, Sigewinne and Nouvelle will be able to suck each other's balls. But besides this, they don't have any other synergy, so it's not worth using them together. Now for Miss Melusine's burst, she becomes Nouvelle. She'll absorb the 2 source water droplets she created with her skill and then pull out a massive needle and spray bubbles at her enemies. Genshin might be getting too creative with their character designs. Because you build Sigewinne with full HP, this won't do that much damage, and it's not really that useful in general if you're using her as a support, because all it does is absorb Siege's droplets, which gives her 10% bond of life for each droplet, so usually 20%. Here is where the confusing part comes in though, because when you clear the bond of life, for every 2000 points cleared, you will gain 1 energy, and this maxes out at 5 energy with 10,000 points of the bond of life cleared. So for you to get 5 energy, you would need to have 50k HP in your Sigewinne, and if you have any less than 50k, then you only get 4 energy. And the difference from 4 to 5 energy isn't massive, I just think it's really weird for this prerequisite for such a small amount of energy, for a burst that isn't really that strong in the first place. So I would recommend just ignoring her burst and building her full HP for the increased healing, and to lead into her first Ascension passive, which is after using your skill, you will gain 10 stacks of her buff, and when a character other than the Melusine hits enemies with their skill while off field, they will use up 1 of these stacks for a flat buff on their elemental skill damage. In total, assuming you have 50k HP, which should be achievable with a recurve bow and 3 HP main stats, you are looking at a solid flat buff on par with Shenhe. Shenhe can use her skill twice in a rotation though, so it's overall going to be worse if you factor that in. This passive still gives Sigewinne synergy with off-field skill attackers like Chiori, Furina, and Fischl, so you can probably run a new type of Furina driving team with this. Other than that, I'm more leaning to the fact that Sigewinne might be built with future characters in mind, as she looks very awkward currently. And no, even though she generates source water droplets, you aren't using her with Nouvelle and losing a draconic stack just for a skill damage buff and 2 extra balls. Her second Ascension passive will give you up to 30% healing bonus for every 1000 HP of a bond active on your team, for just more healing. And because Sigewinne doesn't work well with Clorinde or Arlecchino, and she will only get bond of life after she's done healing, again I'm just leaning into the fact that she's built with future characters in mind. Now to close this video off, let's discuss Sethos, and I'd like to give an apology because I was not familiar with this man's game. Sethos is a bow DPS, so as expected he has different levels on his charge attack. In the second stage he fires a penetrating phantom arrow that will be able to pierce multiple enemies, and it scales off both attack and EM, giving him dual scaling like Alhaitham. When you fully charge the arrow, you can no longer move with Sethos until he shoots his arrow, but this isn't that big of a deal as normally when you fully charge your bow shot, you just shoot it, and hell, this actually gives a clear indicator of when this is done charging. His E is an electro AoE attack in front of him that makes him move back, and when it causes a reaction you gain 12 energy. Lastly, his burst is pretty much Yolon C6, which for 8 seconds your normal attacks will be converted into penetrating dusk bolt arrows that scale completely off of EM, and are considered charge attack damage, that also have an okay amount of AoE in front of him. Looking at the footage, it's about the same as like the Kaya E if you remove the outward parts of it. Now let's talk about his Ascension passive, because this is where things get really interesting. To summarize it down, when you have over 20 energy, Sethos will consume this to get an aimed charge attack reduction of 5.7 seconds, making his aimed charge attack come out extremely fast. And that's because they gave him the dickheadishly long Tighnari charge attack for this to make sense. The fact that this consumes 20 energy is kind of a problem, but I'll talk about it in a second, because we are talking about his second Ascension talent, where every 15 seconds he'll enter the Sandshade state, increasing the damage of his aimed charge attack by 600% of his elemental mastery, which is a lot. This state lasts for 5 seconds and will apply to 4 hits of Sethos' charge attack, so that will either be 4 individual shots or 1 shot that hits 4 enemies and so on. Now to quickly go over his cons, his C1 increases his aim shot crit rate by 15%, C2 gives him 15% electro damage when you consume or gain energy through his charge attack or skill, C3 and 5 are talent upgrades, C4 gives your whole team 80 EM when Sethos hits more than 2 enemies with his burst or aimed shot, and C6 will refund the energy taken from his aim shot once every 15 seconds. So pretty much Sethos will buff his aim shot by a lot and consume energy doing it, but his burst hits, even though they do charge attack damage, don't get buffed as much and won't take your energy. This seems bad, but it isn't actually as grim as it looks or as people have made it out to be. And you also don't want to just skip his aim shot, as even though it does consume a ton of energy, it still does a lot of damage and gives Sethos some buffs. If you do a rotation like charged attack, skill, Q, even at C0, due to things like Electro Resonance, Fischl if she's on your team, and the energy refund from his E, you'll still be able to get the energy back to burst on him even at C0. C6 just makes him easier to play in subsequent rotations, as you'll have to build less ER on him. So no, it's not as bad as you may think it is, just do the charged attack. It comes out very quick and does a ton of damage. So yeah, Sethos is looking to be another great 4-star carry. Not as good as gaming overall, but still going to be quite close to that level. And you're pretty much only going to be playing Sethos on double Electro teams with Fischl, as you'll need the energy, especially at C0. But yeah, he doesn't even really need a C6 either. His breakpoint is going to be at C3, which is very nice. And that is all the characters in 4.7. Clorinde is a very flexible DPS who has very rapid attacks to capitalize on Electro's strengths of chaining multiple reactions. Sigewinne is a very strong healer who can help with buffing off-field damage dealers, which isn't that many characters, on top of her buff not being that strong to warrant using these characters in her teams, besides like Furina and Fischl stuff, so I'm very unsure on how well she'll pan out in practice. And Sethos is another great 4-star carry who alternates between his charge attack and normals while also not needing his C6 to shine. And I had to brush over a lot of things to get this video done in a reasonable amount of time, so let me know which character you want me to make a dedicated video on to further explain their kit and meta applications. And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe and comment your thoughts on these characters, as I'd love to hear and respond to almost every single comment. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.